And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Happy to have you with us. If you are sensing a little tension, a little drama, a little frisson of excitement about the elections, as we're just about 5 days out now from Election Day, if you get the sense that things are a little twang, a little tense right now, closely fought in terms of how the elections are going to be decided, that is not just you projecting from your own internal levels of anxiety. What you are sensing is a true thing that is measurable in the world, never more so than it is measurable tonight. Look at this. This is a new poll just released tonight in one of the most fascinating and important races that is going to happen in the country. This is the Georgia governor's race between Republican Secretary of State, ultra-conservative Republican Brian Kemp, and the former Democratic leader of the state legislature in Georgia, Stacey Abrams. All right, new poll from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. As you see in the headline, it says they are deadlocked. That's not hyperbole. Look. Quote, the poll conducted by the University of Georgia School of Public and International Affairs has Stacey Abrams at 46.9% and Brian Kemp at 46.7%. That is incredible. 5 days out in a statewide race, 5 days out from the election to be separated by 0.2 percentage points. Now, the wild card there in that Georgia race is that if neither of these candidates gets over 50% of the vote, Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams will have to go to a runoff in December. So if neither one of them hits 50, we will not know who Georgia's governor is going to be until next month. There is a libertarian candidate who is running in Georgia as well. He has as much a chance of winning the governorship in Georgia as I have at winning Miss America and the lottery and a Tony Award all tonight. Ta-da! But with a race this close, even with the tiny little pointless sliver of the vote that libertarian candidate seems to be pulling in, him pulling off that number of votes, as unimportant as that will be for his future, it will result in neither Brian Kemp nor Stacey Abrams being able to get over 50% to win that race next week. Not when they're both tied at between 46.7 and 46.9%. But it's not. A new CNN poll out tonight in the U.S. Senate race in Florida. Democratic incumbent Senator Bill Nelson running against the Republican incumbent governor, Rick Scott. That race tonight in Florida also exactly tied, 46% each. We also just got new Fox News polls on the Senate race in Arizona. Republican Martha McSally running against Democrat Kyrsten Sinema. That race is also tied at 46% each. Another Fox News poll also shows a tie in the Missouri Senate race between Democratic incumbent Senator Claire McCaskill and Missouri's Republican Attorney General Josh Hawley. They are both tied at 45%. And look at this one. This is actually the best one of all of them. This one is out of Wisconsin. This is Marquette University. Their poll just released in the Wisconsin governor's race. This is where incumbent Republican Governor Scott Walker is having a tough time holding on to his seat against a Democratic challenger named Tony Evers. This is the Marquette University poll in that Wisconsin governor's race. It now not only shows a tie between Scott Walker and Tony Evers, not only shows them with each having 47% of the vote, that Marquette University poll literally found the exact same number of humans picking Tony Evers as picking Scott Walker. It's not like a statistical tie. It's not in the margin of error. The exact same number of human respondents in that poll picked Tony Evers as picked Scott Walker. Man, lest you think that your vote does not count this year, right? Lest you think that you might not bother. I don't care where you're voting. There are so many really important, really interesting races all over the country, right? Congressional races, statewide races, state legislature races, governor's races, Senate races. There's so many of them where we're seeing polling like this, where it's not just close, it is absolutely dead even. In that case of that Wisconsin governor's race, it's literally tied with the exact same number of beings on each side. And in an environment like that, that means every single individual vote has a good chance of being very exciting. Because it could be decisive. And every race is different. And every race turns on the strengths and weaknesses of each candidate and on the issues on which the candidates are fighting it out and the local circumstances in which those elections are happening. I know every race is local. But when the contest overall appears to be as close as it is this year between the two parties, right? And we see that most strikingly, of course, at the national level with the question of who will control the House of Representatives. And will the Republicans continue to hold it, or will the Democrats hold it? That has huge implications in Washington for the next couple of years of the Trump administration, let alone policy. But even bigger picture than that, right? When the two parties are fighting this hard, this closely, over this many battlegrounds, I think it becomes almost irresistible for the party controlling the White House to try to give the elections overall some sort of big national shove, right? To try to change the weather in their own favor, to try to change the political climate in this country that somehow redounds in the direction of the president's party. I think the White House finds that impossible to not try in an election like this. And when it comes to this White House and this president, the shove that President Trump has tried on for this election, for this year, is remarkably unsubtle. This ad, apparently created by the White House or maybe the Trump campaign, but certainly circulated by the president, it literally argues that Democrats are rioting, violent, marauding criminal mobs that will hunt you down and beat you bloody and destroy your city and then burn its wreckage. That was followed up by the president now circulating a new ad that overtly and literally blames Democrats for a sinister murderer of police officers who braids his beard hair. The ad makes the case that Democrats are in favor of murdering police officers, and specifically they're in favor of this guy murdering police officers. The ad says, "It is outrageous what the Democrats are doing to our country." It literally says, quote, "Democrats, let him stay." Actually, after being deported during the Clinton administration, that is actually a guy who was allowed back to stay in the country by the George W. Bush administration. But apparently that's close enough to Democrats to make the grade when it comes to the expected veracity of presidential statements in the Trump White House. Right? These images are so scary and terrible, right? You can't let the truth of them get in the way of the story they are trying to tell in the last few days before the election, to try to terrify low-information voters into not voting at all, or for voting for the party that they think will defend the white race from the mongrel hordes who Donald Trump promises are coming into your house to punch you in the face. I mean, I realize that's a little on the nose, but I feel like if this is the level of subtlety they want to operate at heading into this election, we should all just meet them where they are and at least talk bluntly about what they are doing here.